are going to begin with our media availabilities today. We're now joined by Joey Logano, the driver of the 22 Shell Pennzoil Ford for Team Penske. Joey, in the past, you've had success here in the Xfinity and Monster Energy Cup Series. You're going for 3 in a row here in the Xfinity. What do you need to do to get a win in both series?
I got to go faster than all the rest of the drivers out there. So, this has been a great racetrack for us the last couple of years. Even before the repave and now since the repave, it seems like we've been able to maintain some of the speed and the things that we've learned on the older surface. So that's all good. And I think I got a good Xfinity car for today, and looking forward to see what I have for a Cup car here in a few minutes.
All right, we'll open it up for questions. Just raise your hand if you have a question, and we'll get a mic over to you. Over here to the right.
Hi, Joey. I guess my question would be, you're running both of the races this weekend, and with all the practice sessions, the qualifying, and then 2 90-lap races, I'm kind of estimating you might be around 275, 300 laps this weekend. Talk about what that is like physically, particularly, I guess, with it's right-handed when typically your muscles are going left.
Yeah, you're definitely using different muscles, especially with the amount of shifting that you're doing here, but look at me. I'm fine. I should be okay. The most challenging part, in all honesty, isn't as much the races as it is running from car to car and trying to keep the 2 practices separate. And at least with this new schedule, yesterday I'm able to focus in 100% on Xfinity practice, which I think really helps. And then now today, the Xfinity car is pretty much done besides qualifying in the race. So I don't have to communicate or talk about a bunch of things anymore. I can focus in on just, driving the car. In the Cup car today, I can focus in on the practicing, and making sure that we get that car tuned in the way it needs to be.
Thank you.
Yep.
Right behind you.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. With the one-day qualifying and race on the same day, how does that affect your mindset? I mean, typically in the past, when you just get ready for the Cup race, you do what you do in the morning, have maybe appearances, talk strategy. Now you've got to get up for 2 different things, and the time in between is not as great as normal.
Yeah, it's definitely changed the game up some. With the 3 o'clock start time last week, even with that, we still had plenty of time in the morning to prepare yourself physically. I guess the part that becomes a little bit more challenging is, we used to always have these appearances we run in the morning. You run 4 or 5 of these different appearances, and now, where do you set those in? You got to do it before qualifying. So it's different. It's different. I think it's okay. I don't really have a problem with qualifying the day of. It all just depends on the schedule, right? The reason why we do it is because if you have 2 series going and we only have so many officials and we have to have so much time to go through tech, unless we've changed some of that stuff up, this is the way it's kind of got to be, I believe, from what I understand at least. So, it's different. I don't think it's a bad thing. If someone crashes in qualifying, I think it puts them in a pretty big bind to get their stuff ready for the race. But, it is what it is. It's the same for everybody.
Bob
Parkhurst, ESPN. After last week, do you view your playoff situation anymore as a kind of a must-win now over the next 5 races?
Closer to it. That's for sure. I'm not sure it's even a must-win yet, but it's getting closer to that point. So, I feel like this is one of our best shots to go out here and win this weekend. But we also have some great racetracks coming up. With Bristol and even Darlington's been a good track for us, and in Richmond as well. So we have some good tracks coming up for us. We've won at the next 4 out of 5 races that are coming up. So we know we can do it. We just got to go do it.
Go ahead, Bob.
Do you race any differently if you're second and Allmendinger or a McDowell is ahead of you, a guy who maybe doesn't have a win yet, versus maybe a Hamlin or somebody or Kyle who does have a win?
No, because our goal is still the same. Our goal is to win the race, no matter what. So I'm not going to race someone different because of their situation. I will understand what their situation is and understand how desperate they are. But for us, we got to stay focused in on our car as much as anybody else's.
All right. Do we have any additional questions for Joey? Kelly, go ahead.
KellyCrandallRacer.com. Two things, Joey. Has running the Xfinity race the last couple years here helped you on the Cup side, maybe just in learning some things or even confidence?
Yeah, for sure. It definitely does. It's a confidence booster for one, but number two, you are able to take some things from the Xfinity race into the Cup race. And the cars drive closer this year, well, I think so far, than they were last year with less spoiler on the Xfinity cars. So your braking zones are kind of the biggest difference, but they're a little closer now with the smaller spoiler on these Xfinity cars. So, I think for me, I remember following Ambrose in the Xfinity race, and we were racing the heck out of each other for the win here. And I remember where he beat me really bad, and I said, oh, man, and I tried doing it. My car couldn't do it. And I said, man, next time I come here, I'm going to make sure my car can do what that car was doing. And ever since then, we've gotten faster. If it wasn't for running that Xfinity race and being up near him, I would never have learned that. So you're able to take a lot because, we only come to this racetrack once a year, and, we don't race road courses that much. So, the more laps you can get around, the more comfortable you feel.
And can you just explain what the difference Watkins Glen is from Sonoma? Most would say, well, they're both road courses, but I've heard a lot of guys say when it comes to Watkins Glen, it's a little bit more unforgiving than, say, Sonoma is. Do you agree with that?
It's a complete 180. Sonoma is a very slow, technical track. Tires wear out a lot. You got heavy braking zones, but you're braking down to like 40, to get around a couple of those turns. Here, you're going so fast, there's not much room for error, and your tires don't wear out. So you can imagine from a car setup perspective and a driving technique perspective is completely different than Sonoma. So you see a lot of drivers and cars that run good at one track that you say, hey, it's a road course, they're going to be good here too. It's not quite the case a lot of times. It takes something completely different to run well at Watkins Glen than it does at Sonoma.
Other side.
Yeah, Joey, when you last won the Cup race here, after the race was over, you got a chance to tear up the asphalt, the old asphalt. They gave pieces of that track away to different dignitaries throughout the rest of that year. Did you ever actually get a piece of that racetrack?
I did. And I didn't really want to tear it up because I finally figured it out, and they put me in an excavator and say, dig it up. I'm like, no, I don't want to. But it was fun to drive that machine, I can tell you that much, and dig it up. But yeah, I do have a piece. We actually, it was kind of cool because we swept that weekend. I made these trophies for my team. They kind of had both, the sponsors of the race and whatever the logo was, and then had a chunk of the asphalt on top of it to give to the team. So it was a really cool weekend for me.
Any other questions? Right behind you here.
Do you think the addition of stages will affect strategy this year?
Yeah, it's effective strategy everywhere we go. And it will again here when you come to Watkins Glen. And depending on certain driver situations, on when they pit and how important they believe stage points are to maybe setting yourself up for the end of the race. There's going to be a lot of different strategies that come into this. And, every time we've gone to a road course, there's always been a lot of strategy to start off with. And when you come to a racetrack, the tires don't really wear out much. You don't really slow down much as you keep going. It definitely becomes a fuel mileage race. And I think this race has come down to fuel mileage all the time because everyone's trying to pit as soon as they possibly can. And they don't want to get caught by that caution. So, there'll be a lot of strategy. I'm not 100% sure what ours is going to be yet, and we'll have to see where we qualify and where we're running to kind of come up with all that. But that's Todd's job. I just drive. I don't want no part of that.
All right. Thanks, Joey, and good luck
Awesome.
this weekend.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
We are going to continue our media availabilities. We're now joined by Jimmie Johnson, the driver of the number 48 Lowe Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. Jimmie, you have 3 wins this season, but this is one of only 3 tracks that you've yet to win at. Overall, how do you get a win here?
You know, I've thought that I would win here before I would at Sonoma. I took to this track pretty quickly in the Busch days. And the Cup Series, I've been a top 3 car at times, probably more often than not a top 5 car. So I hope to find that little bit extra to hold on with the long run speed. I seem to be able to be competitive on the short run, but like many drivers deal with here, I just get the brakes too hot. And on the long run, I seem to give up a little bit of speed. So I need to create lap time, I think, without depending on the brakes so much come race time. So we're working on a few things in that department. Certainly driver inputs play a big role in that. And looking forward to getting on track. We had a terrible race here last year, and we're taken out early in a pretty spectacular fashion off the carousel. And looking forward to a good, strong run here this weekend.
We'll open it up for questions. Just raise your hand. We'll get a mic over to you.
Bob Cockers, ESPN. Dale Jr. has said that he didn't want this last season to feel miserable for his team, and I'm kind of curious at just overall at Hendrick, how much is there any angst over the fact that he hasn't had a great final season so far? Is there worry? Is it what's the feeling and mood about it overall?
I don't see any. I know Dale's living his experience, but from where I sit, what I see going on, I just see race teams trying to win races as business as usual. I haven't been a part of any conversations that focus on that. I'm happy to see Dale so relaxed and enjoying himself, and of course I want to take a little responsibility for that and introducing him to the bicycle because I know how much happiness it brings to me, and I watch that happening in his life. But I still see a very competitive and hungry guy. He's always done a very nice job of articulating his feelings, and he's certainly been open about his experiences this year. But inside the walls of Hendrick Motorsports, it's business as usual. We're not happy with where we are. We want to be dominating every race as a group, and so it's honestly business as usual there.
Did you guys? What were the expectations when he came back, and where did you feel like were expectations maybe too high for a guy who's been out for 4 or 5 months?
Again, internally, expectations. It's been business as usual. We want to win. He wants to win. Greg wants to win. That team is preparing, each and every week, regardless of who was in it last year, to win. I think there's more outside pressure, and I think Dale's aware of his fan base and what's written and what's said, maybe more than some other drivers. And there certainly has been pressure on that side, but inside of Hendrick Motorsports, and it's just been, let's go win races, and then nothing's changed there. Big difference for me, though, Bob, is nobody's really liked me outside the car my whole career, so I've never really paid attention to that. Dale has a fan base to worry about. Say that jokingly, obviously.
Well, are you getting blamed for his bad season?
Yes, absolutely. It's my fault. I'm a terrible teammate. We all know this.
Reed Spencer was NASCAR Wire. You've got 3 tracks left. After his win last week at Pocono, Kyle has 1. And Jeff Gordon was stopped at 1, being Kentucky. Is there any sort of friendly competition about completing that cycle where you've got all the Cup tracks?
I'm so out of touch with stats that I felt like Jeff and Tony were the only guys kind of in that conversation. And then last weekend I learned that Kyle's now down to 1. And I was like, well, dang, there's somebody else in the party here. And Kyle will get it. I can't believe he hasn't won at Charlotte already in a Cup car. Kyle, it's safe to say Kyle's going to be the first one to close out all the tracks. I think with the way he runs and how good he runs at that track, I still have here. Kentucky's been a disaster for me. Chicago, I should have closed a long time ago. I think Kyle, if you're a betting man, I'd put money on Kyle closing out all the tracks first.
I have a question for you. Could you talk a little bit about, if you have noticed, kind of the shift in the approach to road course racing? Because there was a time 10, 15 years ago where people kind of came in and tolerated it and said, let's just get out of here with a car. And now people have really stepped up their game, and it's a real opportunity for, a couple dozen people to be able to win the race.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the days of a ringer coming in and outrunning the regulars just doesn't happen anymore. I think clearly the teams are more prepared and have leaned on the road course ringers and friends they might have at other race teams to build better road course cars. So I think that has been going along behind the scenes. And then I also want to believe at the same time that the drivers coming into the sport just have a more diverse background than the drivers did 20, 30 years ago. So I feel like between those two, and just the pure fact that the competition in this garage area, everybody takes it so seriously, is kind of the third piece that has just equalized things and then kind of pushed it ahead to where the regulars are the favorites now.
Kelly CrandallRacer.com. Jimmie, last week Kyle Larson said what's been going on between you two is just hard racing. He thinks it's fun. He doesn't think maybe you think it's fun, but a line hasn't been crossed. It's just hard racing. What has been going on from your perspective between you two? Because it seems like the last couple of weeks you two have been engaged in a pretty hard battle out there.
Yeah, it's been a blast. I've loved it. No, honestly, I haven't said much about it, and I was surprised to see everything kind of brew up, and I guess we're always looking for a story that's fun to talk about. But truth be told, I just race people how they race me. And it doesn't matter if it's Kyle Larson or Martin Truex, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, doesn't matter. I mean, there's that environment on the track. And through the course of the year, it's been intense with the 42 at times. So, I've been able to race him back the same way. And honestly, it's not singled out to just Kyle. In stage racing today, we have to block and maintain and hold position more than ever. And to see the extent that some drivers have gone through, even myself, to maintain track position, I said it after Indy. Mark Martin would have a heart attack if he was racing in this era. The game has changed, and I have had nothing personal towards Kyle. I don't think he's had anything personal towards me. You just get in that environment of racing people how they race you, and then certain scenarios exist where you need to fight for that position for whatever reason, and it is what it is. So it's just a product of stage racing. So I think NASCAR should be happy they've created a more intense environment, because that's really what it is. Yeah.
One more, I promise. How do you expect the racing to be, knowing that this track, this kind of course, road course, with only a few weeks left for some people to qualify for the chase? Do you expect it to be much more aggressive? I mean, granted, it always is, but because it's a road course, does it allow for people to be, you know what I'm saying, a little bit more aggressive? And do you anticipate that for the race?
I really do, and it's just kind of building on Kelly's question, where there's 2 or 3 obvious areas to make a pass here. And if somebody's faster behind you and you can hold them up for a lap or two and let their tires get hot or overwork their brakes, you throw a couple blocks, you protect your spot, you can keep somebody behind you pretty easily here. So when that starts to happen, if you're somebody that is needs to win, desperate in points, you might have the bumper come in your direction. So I think that stage racing in general has really ramped this up, and then the equality in cars and how difficult it is to pass is another component to that. So I anticipate it being very exciting here. The speeds are higher here versus Sonoma, so moving somebody out of the way is a bit trickier, and I don't think is common, but it should be a very exciting race.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. The fans were calling and seemed to really like the racing between you and Kyle Larson. And, there's something about a mega champion racing a young guy coming in and everybody sort of feeling each other out. Can you talk about that? Some of the conversation was when you have a young driver coming in and a veteran who's a, mega champion, that it's good to see. Is there any feeling each other? How do you race each other? How do you kind of work these things out?
For me, I don't, especially with Kyle, I don't see him as a young guy come in, and I just see him as a fast driver, fast car. So I don't. My head doesn't go there. At Indy, I had just passed him, and then had to deal with some lap traffic, and then Kyle got back to me, and I was defending my spot. The racing again just has changed out there, and spotters have a huge role in today's racing, and telling you exactly where the guy is behind you so that you can cut the air off to their car and make it more difficult for them. So there's just a lot of little things that drive the intensity up and the frustration up when you're in a faster vehicle trying to overtake someone. But for myself personally, I don't see somebody's experience when I'm staring at their car. It's really about that moment, and how somebody's raced you also comes into play. We're like elephants out there. We kind of remember things that people might forget otherwise, but it's really just a racing thing. And Kyle's an amazing talent. He's going to win many more races and without a doubt win championships. So I'm happy to have those heated competitions with drivers out there, including Kyle.
Are there any other questions for Jimmie? Right here to the left.
John Kikis from AP. A few years ago, you came up here and tested it, or drove a sports car in the race to improve your skills. What would a win here mean for you personally?
I love this area. I've always been a big fan of this track, and really enjoyed my experience with Gainesco up here in their prototype. Running the boot was, I think, something all drivers think about or dream about. So to be able to do all of that, learn a few lessons along the way, I carry over the Cup car has been a lot of fun. I'd love to win here, without a doubt. It's a very cool track, a lot of history here, and as we were discussing earlier, one of 3 tracks I haven't won at, so I have a lot of motivation to win here.
All right, thank you, Jimmie.
Cool,
Good luck
thank you.
this weekend.